thing we should do is update our kartals. Do they have kartals in the shop? Do they? They do?
Yeah.
They do.
Those ones are better.
Well, see, they're so bad, nobody steals them. That's why they're still here. They've been here for so long. Like about 20 years, maybe longer. Because nobody wants them. But all the good kartals have been taken. All the good pairs, because it's not a pair. You can tell? Dissonance. You know what dissonance? Dissonance. They're kind of close, but... And these... Not sure what these are. But maybe... They're also not a pair in terms of tuning. Well, you want them both to be the same ring. Right, there's two tones coming out of there. So I'm going to use these smaller ones. And we don't need lots of them, just 3 pairs, little pairs of kartals. And you know, you could take the wampas and put them somewhere so nobody knew where they were. And that wouldn't harm our kirtan. It would actually benefit our ears. Right? Because these are, kartals are super penetrating sound. And it's easily damages your eardrums. There's hairs in your ears, right, that vibrate when the sound enters your ear, and that's how you hear. Right? What an amazing apparatus the ear is, right? But what happens is when you get loud sounds, it damages those hairs, fine hairs, and then have a guess what happens to your hearing? What was that? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Kunjabi Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhara Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhara Janana Yasoda Nandana Raja Janana Jamuna Tera Banato Jamuna Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Acharya Ashto Dharasar Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Kantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki Nitya Gaura Premanandi. What number have we got up there?
331, 5.
5. Okay. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Namo Bhagavate
So we're reading from Canto 3, Chapter 31, The Movements of the Living Entities. Text number 5. Matur Jagdhana Panadyair Idhadatur Asamate Sete bin mutrayor garte Sajantu jantu sambhave Matu jagdhana panadyair Idhadartur asammate Sete bin mutrayor garte Sajantur jantu sambhave Matur jagdhana Ladies?
Matur Jagdhana Panade
Matur Jagdhana Panade
Edhadhatura Sammate
Edhadhatura Sammate
Sete Vinmutra Yogate
Sete Vinmutra Yogate
Sajantur Jantu Sambhave
Sajantur Jantu Sambhave
Matur Jagdhana Panade
Matur Jagdhana
Matu,
Matur,
of the mother.
of the mother.
Jagdha,
Jagda,
taken.
taken.
Anapana,
Anapahya,
by the food
by the food
and drink.
and drink.
Ajay, and so on.
And so on.
Edhat, increasing. Dhatu, the ingredients of his body.
The ingredients of his body.
Asamate,
Asamate,
abominable.
abominable.
Shete,
Shete,
remains.
remains.
Vit mutrayo, of stools and urine.
Of stools and urine.
Garte, in a hollow. Saha, that. Jantu, fetus. Jantu, of worms. Sambhave, the breeding place. Deriving its nutrition from the food and drink taken by the mother, the fetus grows and remains in that abominable residence of stools and urine, which is the breeding place of all kinds of worms. Purport. In the Markandeya Purana it is said that the intestine of the mother, the umbilical cord, which is known as Apyayani, joins the mother to the abdomen of the child. And through this passage, the child within the womb accepts the mother's assimilated foodstuff. In this way, the child is fed by the mother's intestine within the womb and grows from day to day. The statement of the Markandeya Purana about the child's situation within the womb is exactly corroborated by modern medical science, and thus the authority of the Puranas cannot be disproved, as is sometimes attempted by the Mayavadi philosophers. Since the child depends completely on the assimilated foodstuff of the mother, during pregnancy there are restrictions on the food taken by the mother. Too much salt, chili, onions and similar food is forbidden for the pregnant mother because the child's body is too delicate and new for him to tolerate such pungent food. Restrictions and precautions to be taken by the pregnant mother as enunciated in the Smriti scriptures of Vedic literature are very useful. We can understand from the Vedic literature how much care is taken to beget a nice child in society. The Garbhadhana ceremony before sexual intercourse was compulsory for persons in the higher grades of society, and it is very scientific. Other processes recommended in the Vedic literature during pregnancy are also very important. To take care of the child is the primary duty of the parents because if such care is taken, society will be filled with good population to maintain the peace and prosperity of the society, country and human race. Amma Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshuram Maitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishnam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Tadati Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Grim Yat Kripa Tamam Vadesi Okay, so looking after children. Is important. One of Arjuna's gravest concerns about the outcome of the Battle of Kurukshetra was the destruction of family traditions, destruction of the family and the traditions surrounding. Because the leaders of society, and in this case, or in that case, the Kshatriyas, they're meant to look after all of the residents, all of the citizens, all of the animals, effectively, but also not only, but to see everybody, every living entity as a member of the greater family of society. You know, human beings doesn't just mean human beings, just like Krishna just doesn't mean Krishna alone. When we talk of Krishna consciousness, we certainly understand Krishna, but we understand Krishna with all of his accoutrement, right? It's a French word actually, but what does accoutrement mean? Have you heard that word? You haven't heard that word? You probably don't speak French. Accoutrement. It means all of the... let's look it up. It means all of the attachments, I guess. You know, when you buy a phone or a car, right? You get all the things that come with it. You open up the manual and you read all of the things to know what it does. Right? So, let's have a look here. Let's see what we can come up with. Oh, I didn't spell it properly. Okay. This is it. Accoutrement, an additional item of dress or equipment. And synonyms: equipment, stuff, things, apparatus, tackle, kit, implements, tools, appliances, rig, outfit. Here's another word: appurtenances. Appurtenances. Don't hear that word being used very often, do you? Appurtenances. Miscellaneous articles, odds and ends, bits and pieces, accessories, equipage, which is it's equipment, right? So when we talk of Krishna, or when we think of Krishna, then we think of, and we were discussing this last night, Krishna's name, his form, his qualities, and his pastimes. So Krishna means everything related to Krishna. Why we study the Bhagavad Gita, which is, and why we study the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Some people complain, or they say, you know, oh, this is just about soldiers on a battlefield. What's that? That's not spiritual. Just a list of names. But the reason why we study these things is because they're related to Krishna. When something's related to Krishna, then it has meaning. Right? And because the first chapter, you know, we're not talking about any old battlefield. Right? We're talking about the Kurukshetra. And why Kurukshetra? Because Krishna's there. Right? So the Kshatriya's service is to look after the citizens of the state. And that means also the animals, and it means everybody, not just the human beings. And so there's a very broad vision of what looking, and so the king is meant to be viewed as if he's the father of everybody, right? And that everybody's part of a very big family, because there's an understanding of the connections and the relationships that we have based on the fact that we're all connected to Krishna, that we're spirit souls, and that we're all part of Krishna's family, even if you happen to be in a dog's body, or especially the cows, for example. So the concept of the Vedic order of things is the Brahmanas have the spiritual vision, and the Kshatriyas are guided by the spiritual vision of the Brahmanas. And they too also maybe have that same spiritual vision, the Raja Rishis. Right? They're kings, but they also have spiritual vision. We're all supposed to have spiritual vision. That's the purpose of the human form of life, is to have spiritual vision, headed up by the Brahmanas. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Right? Just by the way. That's our duty. Why Prabhupada emphasised being a Brahmana. It's important. Because the Brahmanas see the connection to Krishna. Everything, is connected to Krishna. That's the vision of a Brahmana. That's why he's called a Brahmana. If he hasn't got a spiritual vision, he's not a Brahmana. Right? Maybe he may wear a Brahmin thread, but that's just show bottle. If there's no spiritual vision, then Brahmana, no, not they. Right? So the Kshatriyas oversee the activities of the Vaishyas, and the Vaishyas engage the Sudras. Under the umbrella or under the spiritual vision of the Brahmanas, everybody ultimately will be engaged in activities that are connected to Krishna. Right? Even though they may not know it, they'll be getting the benefits, subtle benefits, of working under the vision of a organisation or an administration that's guided by spiritual values. That's why the Brahmanas are so important. And the Kshatriyas meant to follow the Brahmanas. So, and in that culture, there's an appreciation of the value of the family and the value of looking after children. Right? Looking after kids is big responsibility. Right? Big responsibility. Vedic culture, and we see this in India still. Prabhupada mentions how you can still see remnants of Vedic culture, like a dead elephant. Prabhupada likens Vedic culture to a dead elephant. A dead elephant still has some use. Right? Features of the elephant, the tusks, the skin, the hair. Right? You can actually use those things for a good purpose. So even though the elephant's dead, he still has some good, some utility. Right? Not that we meet a lot of dead elephants. So Vedic culture also, there's remnants of Vedic culture, and we see that in the focus of Indian culture on children, looking after children. Is that right? Sacrificing your life to look after your kids. That's what you're doing, isn't it? Are you being looked after, Krishna? Yeah. Well fed? Well educated? Yeah. And look, he's so happy. Huh? He's happy. He gets looked after, so the children are happy. And then happy children make happy adults. Right? And when we've got happy adults, then we've got sanity in society. Right? Because Arjuna's concern was, what about if the leaders of society who have that focus on family and the benefits of having sane, human beings living together. Excuse me. If we don't have that, if we don't have a sane leadership that understands the benefit of doing these things, what will we have? We'll have unwanted children, which is what more or less what we experience today, right? To one degree or another. And it means a crazy society, right? No appreciation of the value of spiritual culture. Sense gratification is the norm, that's how you become happy, but because sense gratification doesn't make you happy anyway, everybody's disturbed and unhappy, right? More or less. So that was his big concern. And so, you know, this is really the Vedic culture for the majority of the citizens is to nurture a good population, and that means, you know, peaceful, healthy, well-educated citizens. They'll do what you tell them to do, right? If your children are looked after nicely, hopefully, you can confirm this or not. When we tell them what to do, they'll do it, right? But in modern society, if the administrators, the Kshatriyas, tell the citizens what to do, they rebel. You know, why should we do what you tell us to do? You don't look after us anyway, right? And children rebel against their parents. Why should I do what you tell me to do? You're not looking after me properly. Right? They're disturbed. I'm disturbed. You didn't look after me. I was discussing this with Christian last night. How, to a degree, and it was out of necessity more than anything, our parents worked hard just to survive, and then they neglected their children. Right? And then the children feel disgruntled. I know my dad used to go away for weeks at a time, a couple of weeks, and then he'd come back, and as far as I was concerned, he was just bossing me around. Didn't listen to me. If he did listen to me, he'd just tell me, no, that's stupid. Whatever I came up with, that was stupid. And he was always yelling at me, turn that music off. He just wasn't into appreciating what I was into. That's what they call the generation gap. Right? It's a generation gap. But ideally, we don't want a generation gap. We want to be interested in the same things, or at least be aware of what our children are thinking. Like I was asking Kripasita yesterday, what are the kids talking about? What are they talking about? What are they into? When they get together amongst themselves. There was a book, I used to work in William Collins in their book warehouse. And they had an educational section, and in that I was friends with the lady who, they supply all the school libraries, right, with educational books. And I picked up a book from there, because otherwise it's Mills and Boon. Do you know what Mills and Boon is? Mills and Boon is love stories. Love stories. They're the biggest sellers. Soppy stuff. But they're the hugest sellers. We were pushing that stuff out of the warehouse like anything. And I bet we don't bet, but I'm pretty sure it's the same today. Anyway, I had this book, and it was about the nursery, the rhymes and the ditties and the jokes that existed in the schoolyard, right, of Australian schools all around the country. And it's amazing stuff. There's a whole culture, subculture that the children have. Some of it's a little ribald, or, you know what I mean by ribald? Bit rude, right? But things like, I mean, you probably have, and I'm sure it's in India as well, But rhymes like, where's one, if I can remember some of them. It's raining, it's pouring, the old man snoring. Well, it's raining, it's pouring, the old man snoring. He, what did he do? He woke up, hit his head, and fell out of bed or something. It's raining, it's pouring. Right, so, and this, I've forgotten most of them. There are heaps of it's just what the kids have as a culture. Huh? So I'd be interested to know what our kids are saying when they're out and talking to each other. Do you know? As a parent, do you know what your kids are talking about with their friends? Yeah, all that. The latest gadget. The latest gimmick these days. Right? The latest gimmick. Smartphones. Right? All the kids want a smartphone. Yet we know nothing smart comes out of a smartphone, right? It's smart. The guy who invented it was very smart. Because he's now taken our money and our attention. Right. So, Vedic culture saw to it that, if the kids were talking in the courtyard, our kids do. They talk about the Mahabharata. They talk about the Ramayana. They talk about, spiritual topics. In the evenings, they'd be having Bhagavad Gita or Ramayana or discussions in the villages. Right? No television, no electricity. Get together at night. What do? Chant Hare Krishna. What else is there to do? So you go to bed, Prabhupada says the children go to bed dreaming about Krishna and the Ramayana. Right? So that's culture. So, the Vedic culture understands right from the beginning, before you can... So looking after children begins before you even conceive them. Right? This is pretty far out. People don't think of these things in ordinary society. They don't think of these things. Or, their children just happen. Oh, it was a mistake. Right? My mum told me that my youngest brother, James was a mistake. Right? In one of my mother's more franker moments, she told me, we didn't actually want to have another child. But in a Vedic culture, the children, it's planned. Planned, actually in Vedic culture, we see family planning is actually practiced. But in Western society, family planning is a euphemism for what? Huh? What is it a euphemism for, family planning? Family planning clinic. Might give you a hint. Yes. Yeah, abortion. Huh? Oh, we don't want a child. We got a child, we don't want it. How many... Very well, Santosh. How many children are being killed in the womb? We don't belabor this point, but it's very embarrassing. Extremely embarrassing. That's not looking after children, is it? What kind of a culture is that? But the mentality of the parents is welcoming that spirit soul to the womb of the mother to welcome them, to make them feel at home, right? Attract the... Right? we can understand from the Vedic literature how much care is taken to beget a nice child in society. We want nice children, despite the fact they wreck the place. Right? That's okay. That's what children do. Huh? The Garbhadana ceremony before sexual intercourse was compulsory for persons in the higher grades of society, and it is very scientific. Huh? And then other samskaras to again welcome the child, to pacify the mother. So, looking after the women, looking after the children, big responsibility of the Kshatriyas ultimately, the administrators, but of the whole of society. And it's a challenge for us, actually. I hadn't thought of this, but it is a challenge for us because we have more kids, right? More children. And that's an audience that needs to be looked after. When we do programs, or even in our morning program, we actually need to take care of the needs of the children. Certainly the parents do. But even as a community, we need to be aware of it. Right? Because if we've got more children, what does that mean? If you've got lots of kids in your community, what does that mean? Yes, your future. Yeah, yes. And you've got young people. If you haven't got kids, it means you've got oldies like me. Right? We're getting old. So we've already neglected our children in ISKCON. We perfected that in the 70s. Right? For service. Let's just do service. For the men, women are Maya. For the women, men are Maya. Children are a distraction from what you should really be doing. Right? We should be serving Krishna. Is that right? But we know that if you don't look after your children, when they grow up, they don't become devotees. Right? They become disillusioned. Right? We know that. We've had enough experience in ISKCON to see if we're not looking after our kids, they don't become devotees. Is that a fact? It's a reality. Painful, a little bit. And Prabhupada points out here, he says here in the purports, he's telling us, we have to look after the children. Right from Garbhadana Samskara through to, middle age. We'll be old age and they'll be middle age. And we want them to look after us. Right? We want our children to look after us. That's what happens. So, what does Prabhupada say here? To take care of the child is the primary duty. Right? What does primary mean? Prime. Main, yeah. Of the parents. Because if such care is taken, society will be filled with good population to maintain the peace and prosperity of the society, country and human race. That's pretty important. My father apologised to me 10 years ago, maybe less, for neglecting me as a child. My father was a teacher, we moved around a lot. And my parents realised that one of the reasons why I was a rebel was because we were always moving. And my father was career focused. And we all do this. Oh, I do it. Or I did it. No, I'm still doing it. I'm sure I'm still doing it. Lucky, in one sense, lucky, fortunate that my wife and I didn't have any children because we would have just neglected them. In one sense. Of course, we've got so many children now. So there's a benefit. But and society pushes us. Circumstance pushes us. It's not that my father did it deliberately. He didn't. And it wasn't that he didn't love me or my brothers. But the nature of Kali Yuga and the nature of circumstances works against this principle. And if we're ignorant of it, or if we ignore it, then it can be problematic for us as a community, moving forward. So, there are statements in the Bhagavatam where it says you shouldn't be too attached to your wife. You shouldn't be too attached to your children, At the same time, certainly we shouldn't be too attached for sense gratification, yes. But we should be attached to the devotees and to looking after Krishna's devotees, right? And our children are hopefully Krishna's devotees. Huh? If we don't look after them, then they won't be. So this is a very important consideration for us, especially in our community, because, you can't walk in the front gate sometimes without falling over half a dozen kids, right? Or there's, whatever it is that they're playing out on the lawn. Last night they protested, right? We fenced off the garden, so there was a protest, so they ripped up the fence. Right? And the Chicharupa's already found out who it was. So we know who the culprit is. The Chicharupa probably had a chat with Hayagriva and he told her. She's made friends with all the kids. This is the benefit of Easter egg hunts. You get inside connections. So if anything's been broken around the place, you just go and have a chat with your inside connections and they'll tell you everything that's going on. Huh? But it's funny, but it's not so funny. We do need to be connected to our children so that we know what's going on and so we can serve them. We're servants, right? We're supposed to be servants. And if we're having children, then we're the servants of our children. Not for our sense gratification, but really not for theirs either, but for, the benefit of the whole society. Prabhupada did make the comment that our children, the third generation, will be pure devotees if we look after them, right? So, child protection, education, all of these things, super important in order to create a good population of devotees. That's what we want, right? Good devotees. And they'll have an impact. They'll have a big impact on the future of the world. That will happen. That will happen. Despite what we do, that will happen. But better if we facilitate it with understanding. Huh? Better that we do it. And that we understand, especially for the householder community, that's our purification. We'll realise that for a little bit of pleasure, We got so much hassle, so much struggle, right? We probably will be we'll be looking for a higher goal in life. But for most of us, it means, most of us in conditioned life means families, right? Most of us. And that means children, and that means facing, considering this whole process from Garbhadana samskara to the different samskaras in the womb to actually looking after the children, giving them affection, protection, support, education, right? And then those well-protected, well-balanced individuals, devotees, ideally, will carry on the mission of preaching in one sense, but just setting a good example. This is the highest kind of preaching in many respects. It's just being a balanced, be a pure devotee. That's the best. That's what we want to be. That's the whole purpose of our activities, is to become a pure devotee. And if we model that for our children, hopefully they'll also become pure devotees without all of the, well, certainly speaking for myself, all of the conditioning that comes from a material upbringing, so that we gradually create the society of devotees that Prabhupada envisaged would be the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Right? Very interesting. Okay, I'll finish here. Does anybody have any comments or questions? What do you think?
Normally in preaching programs, grahasthas do ask what is the reactionary, how do we react to having kids without Garbhadana sanskar. So we usually give them the answer to build a conducive and Krishna conscious environment and give them a devotee kids association and devotee teaching. So please like to add.
Yeah. But even if you do Garbhadana samskara, that's not guaranteed. That's not a guarantee. Actually, you can do everything right. That's still not a guarantee. Right? Look at Ajamil. Right? Yeah. Yep. Put all that effort in and then you've got a little demon still. Hare
The
Krishna.
best example would be the parents themselves, because children emulate the parents. They are the role model.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's good to see the children coming with the parents for the program, chanting. That's why I like to make friends with the kids. They need to feel, looked at, Plus my insurance policy for the future. I'm thinking, which one of these is going to be my dad next lifetime? Don't laugh. It could be true. Which one of these guys is going to be whipping me around the ears? I better make friends with him now. Huh? Not so far-fetched, actually. Not so far-fetched. So, with that in mind, you've got to look after your children carefully, aren't you? Japataka Maharaj told me, when we were talking about the Gurukul, he said, we better get this place organised because we're going to be coming back to school here next lifetime. according to our philosophy, that's not so far-fetched. Comment? Kripasidha? Rasulullah Sini?
Okay, if you're asking, I was just thinking how to view the children and everyone else through the Krishna, because everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. But if we view it from our point of view, if we are in the center, then we'll be either Maya or, they say two sides of the medal. Either we'll be attached or artificially detached.
Yes.
If we see it from the position of ourselves,
Yeah.
in relation to us, that's going to be material vision, material love, material, but if we see them, this is Krishna's part and parcel.
Yeah.
We are all Krishna's part and parcels. We are
Yeah.
not his bodies.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because in the previous verses that I've been giving classes on here, Prabhupada mentions that a pure devotee is one who sees everybody equally, right? And who sees everybody part and parcel of Krishna. That's, Prabhupada says, is a pure devotee, right? And very advanced. And so then we are meant to see beyond that selfish kind of perspective that you mentioned there. And we're supposed to see then, because everybody's connected to Krishna, and we're connected to Krishna too, then we see everybody from that spiritual perspective and want to look after them or assist them or help them. And that's actually quite advanced, because the tendency is to see from that external covering. And we've got to train ourselves to see from the internal. But it's not that difficult, mind you. Having kirtan, having the Bhagavatam class is a display of affection, right? Sharing this information and knowledge, that's affection. Seeing the deities reminds us of our relationship with Krishna. So what we do isn't altogether removed from that correct consciousness. And the practical things that we do, prasadam distribution to everybody and anybody, these are symptoms of seeing everybody from the spiritual perspective. And of course, the other thing is natural. It's natural for us to have an affection for our own family. It's natural. So we shouldn't deny that. But we should make sure that it's all connected to Krishna. Right? That's why we have sadhana. That's why we do our sadhana. So that we can see from that spiritual perspective. That's how we do it, actually. That's our system. Our system is, how do we see everybody from the spiritual perspective? What's the first thing we do in the day? Pay obeisances? We do, actually. Well, we should do. Yeah. Why is that a show of spiritual, seeing everybody equally? Why? Offering our obeisances to the Guru. Why is that a show of, opens up your heart, or the Guru opens up your heart to see things properly, right? Oma jnana timirundasya, that's what we say, right? Opens my eyes with the torch of knowledge. Yeah. So, he's the representative of Krishna. Yes, that's right. And Krishna will reveal all of the learning to us. So that what we do, practically speaking, is meant, and so going to Mangalatik, chanting your japa, all of these things are aids to seeing things, everything from the spiritual perspective. And seeing the equality of all living beings. Instead of, what are those kids up to? Oh, look at those lovely spirit souls that we're here to look after. Our responsibility You don't let your children play under the kitchen sink, right? Do you? No, my mum didn't. You don't let them go in the kitchen. Keep an eye on them in the bedroom. The kids will open up the oven, stand on the door, right, and then pull the oven on themselves. And if there's something cooking on top, or they'll climb on the cupboards and then pull the cupboard on top of themselves. It's a dangerous world out there, even in the home. Yeah, so proper vision. Okay, I think we can finish here. Gandharaj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Krishna kids ki jai, Srīmad ki jai.